this is your girl, Alexandra Bernard Simmons, and you're watching Think Like a Boss TV. And when I say think like a boss, I mean becoming a CEO of your life and taking back control. And what that means is we run into a lot of problems, just like in relationships. Today, we're going to try to tackle the topic of relationships, and I have some experts here to actually help with that. To my right, I have Miss Carolyn.
Hi, my name is Carolyn Paige, and I run a blog and a YouTube channel called See the Girls Girl, C as in Carolyn, thegirlsgirl.com, and I'm a relationship and dating coach in Philadelphia.
Yes, and we have the doctor over here. The doctor's in the house.
Hi, everyone. I am Dr. Jamila Codrington. I am a New York State licensed psychologist, and I have a private practice and consulting business that, among many things, focuses on couples and marriage and family therapy. And I absolutely love doing work that can help create unity within our community. And it starts with the family, which starts with marriage and couple.
Marriage, couples, and relationships. We need to gather our lives. So let's jump right into this. So, monogamy. Is this a dying idea, or do you feel like people are still striving for monogamous relationships?
I think that people still want monogamous relationships because they still want that stability of a family. People still think that, monogamy probably brings the most stability, and younger generations might have different ideas because of things that are changing and things that they may have seen from their parents that they didn't like, and they want to go a different route. But I still think there's a lot of people who still want that stability of a monogamous relationship.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What do you think?
I do think monogamy is still something that's very appealing in that it is the traditional route. It carries, I think, the most pride when it comes to doing right by your family and even in certain religious communities. But I also am aware that there are, I think, an increasing number of individuals that are looking at non-traditional relationship frameworks. The idea that you can love more than one person at a time and engage in polyamory and have marriages that are open or have polygamy, in that people are looking for maybe a supportive family lifestyle where they have sister wives. Right. And for many, I think, women of African descent, where it's difficult sometimes to find men, they are starting to think about non-traditional routes. And I think that monogamy is sort of still that gold standard, but there is a lot of sort of burgeoning interest in other relationship styles.
Absolutely. As for me, I want no sister wives. But
neither do I.
But I did interview somebody in a polygamous relationship, and she did state that it just made the household a little bit easier because she had more helps. There were more moms in the house. So we know as women, we just juggle so many things, and she just felt like that was one of the pros. In addition to that, she was bisexual, so I really just think it was kind of to fill both needs in that section. So I was like, okay, for each their own, no judging whatsoever. But that actually brings me to my next question. Do you feel like with this generation, the media, TV, social media has a little influence on that? Because I know there is going to be a show based on side chicks.
That's so crazy.
And I still can't even wrap my mind around it, that this is a thing that's actually happening and they're actually glorifying someone sleeping with someone else's husband. But do you guys feel like the media is influencing the generation today?
I think so, because I think it's tougher to have a monogamous relationship nowadays because of social media, because you can reach out to so many people and there's so many trust issues that can run rampant on social media.
Even social media, there's like a hashtag waste her time 2017.
Like,
what? Yes! Oh my God, you guys don't see these? Hashtag waste his time 2017. Like, for real, this is a hashtag now. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think that people aren't believing in monogamy as much as they used to, and I think that I don't want to say that side chicks are becoming more acceptable, but look at Scandal. I mean, their whole show was about her being, a glorified side chick. And I like Scandal, and I love, I can't think of the actress's name, but I love her. Carrie Washington.
I was going to say Olivia Pope.
Yeah.
That's her name.
Carrie Washington, I love her, and I love Olivia Pope. Like, I love her style and all that.
Right.
But, I mean, that's who she is, and I can see that being a reality show just because of how much drama it would bring. And I think that this society feeds on drama.
Right.
And I think that seeps in, you know? It becomes normal.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think, Doc?
So indeed, I think media is probably the most powerful tool for conditioning our minds and conditioning our behaviors. And particularly for young people, they're very susceptible to definitions from series, from social media around what is acceptable inside of a relationship realm. And I think that there are many themes that you can look at inside of social media, some of the hashtags that you've mentioned, but also you look at World Star, you look at all these different ideas about what's happening and what goes public. And usually it's the ratchet that goes public, right? Because that's the most entertaining.
Right.
And so you're creating a whole new social norm through ratchet TV around what it means to be in a relationship.
Right.
And when you don't have strong parenting and mentorship and spiritual and religious communities that are there conditioning the minds and the values and the behaviors of young people coming up, they're being socialized by World Star. They're being socialized by social media.
Right.
And so absolutely it is a concern. And that is not going to reflect wholesome traditional monogamy.
No,
Absolutely not.
because it's boring.
Right, right. But bringing me to a point, you had said something that struck me, parenting and basically what they've seen in the past. Do you feel like for the Black community that one reason that monogamous relationships is not, one of the biggest goals is because we don't have examples to live up to, or just, bad history? What do you guys think about that?
I think it has a lot to do with your examples. I mean, when I was growing up, none of my girlfriends had fathers. I was the only one who had a father that was still married to their mom, who lived in the house, no drama. They didn't even have fathers that lived in the house, stepfathers, nothing. So, I mean, it's a huge thing in the Black community, not having the presence of fathers around and not seeing a successful marriage from your mom or your aunts or whoever is in your family. Well, you don't see it, you don't think it's possible. You might see it on TV, but you're like, well, in reality, that doesn't really exist.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think that has a huge impact on us.
Okay. And Jamila, psychologically, what do you feel like the history of, people of color and relationships?
So we're always coming to the table in general with baggage. And then when you have centuries of racism and oppression, your bag is even heavier, right? And so we have to think about the fact that we've been living in this country under the forces of racism, Jim Crowism, a range of different discrimination and oppression practices has followed us for hundreds of years. And part of that brings us to a point of not feeling that we have the self-worth, that we're kings and queens, right? And so when you walk through life not relating to yourself with high self-esteem, or knowing that you can engage in a relationship and not rely on that relationship to validate you, because you give yourself your own sense of worth and validation, then a lot of times you are going into relationships under the pretense that it's going to give you something that really you should be giving yourself.
Absolutely.
So then when you don't get that thing, when someone is disrespectful to you, or someone doesn't honor you the way that they want you, the way you want them to honor yourself, then it's not just a problem that needs to be resolved through a communication strategy, but it's something that is an attack really on who you are as a person.
Right.
And so small things become mountains, really, when you think about the ways in which people are bringing a sense of low self-worth, or they're buying into the lie of Black inferiority into the relationship dynamic and looking for their partners to provide that validation.
So what it sounds like is mental health plays a huge role in a relationship. The mental health for yourself plays a huge role in what you attract. And it reminds me of one of my favorite quotes that I share with a lot of women that I work with. You date at the level of your self-esteem. And what that means is the way that you love yourself radiates outwards.
Yes.
And you show people the way you're supposed to be treated by the way you treat yourself.
Absolutely.
And you know, some people are just missing that mark. Both male and females are missing that mark, and we get into these broken relationships as broken people.
Right.
So
and
I feel like
each other.
yes, and in the Black community, when you even mention the word, you know, psychology or go see a psychologist, it's like, oh no, clutch the pearl.
Right.
I
Why should
simply
you say that?
can't.
Right.
You know, you just go to church and get over it. And I
Right.
think that's something, I feel like in 2016, 2017, that's something that people are more open to.
Indeed.
Again, because of social media. Again, we're watching our favorite, you know, celebrities die of suicide.
Right,
So
right.
I feel like it is a topic that's being talked about a lot nowadays, but we don't know how important it is to your actual relationship. So that's pretty big. So moving on to the next thought, what do you feel are like the top 3 things that are needed in a relationship, or well, not really needed, the top 3 things that go wrong in a relationship rather?
I would say, like we were just talking about, not loving yourself and not treating yourself with enough respect that other men or women, whoever you are dating, will treat you with. That's definitely top. Then communication. A lot of us don't communicate well. A lot of us learn how to communicate from our parents, and you know, either we're taught to, you know, yell and scream and get it out that way, or we're taught to, you know, keep it in. You know, a lot of us aren't taught really good communication skills. And I think that's number one, because if you can't communicate your needs, your wants, you know, your differences, and be able to actually have a conversation, a discussion about it and move forward, then your relationship is doomed from the get-go.
Agreed.
And trust. I think trust is, you know, extremely important to have in a relationship.
Yes. What do you think, Jamila?
I agree. Communication and trust, the foundation, the bedrock of a sustainable relationship. I think what happens is that we don't spend enough time in courtship. We don't spend enough time getting to know our partners, and part of it is that we confuse romance with love. That many people get into relationships because of the euphoria of falling in love with a person, and they think that that is a sufficient condition to move forward in a lifetime partnership or even a committed relationship. But in fact, there's so much more around compatibility that's needed in order for a relationship to be sustainable. I know that even when you think about the questions that you ask a person when you're dating, or the things that you might talk about when you first meet someone, you know, they're kind of superficial. What do you do? What are your interests? We never ask the tough questions. What's your vision for how to raise children? If my parent was to die and we had to make a decision around relocating so that we can take care of the remaining parent that's left, would you uproot yourself and move with me to another state? These are the things that really make up the nuts and bolts of life, you know, and we make decisions around relationships just on emotion and not on our philosophy of life, not on our values, and not on understanding the whole person as they evolve. And so I think we need to spend more time really getting to understand theirs, certainly the mental health and the psyche of an individual and their families. Because you're not just in a relationship with a person or marrying a person, but you're marrying into a family. And there's so much that happens inside of that dynamic with in-laws.
Absolutely.
Something that you said reminded me of something that I read, I want to say maybe a year ago. There's actually different ways that people show love. I think it's the 5 ways of loving someone. I know one is showing affection, one is acts of service, one is through touch, one is through lavish gifts,
Yep.
and the last is through spending quality time.
Right.
So the way that I want to be loved may not be the same way my spouse wants to be loved.
Right.
When I love somebody, I am so extra when it comes to gifts.
Yeah.
Extra.
Right.
I am like, every gift is so well thought out. It's expensive. It's usually a trip to Hawaii or something.
right.
Like, I want to show you my appreciation by showing that I'm so thoughtful.
Right.
And I want to get you something. Or we gonna spend time together all the time. So
Right.
spending time to me, that's love.
Right.
Whereas someone else may want to be touched all the time. Because
Right.
touch is very important.
Yeah.
It is.
So I feel like some people need to not really have that conversation, but pay attention
Right.
to your partner to see what kind of, makes them light up, what makes their soul, catch on fire. Or maybe you could just ask. And some people they don't know the love languages.
don't.
Love languages.
Right.
That's what the book is. Yep.
So to bring it up in a topic of conversation, that would be something good. So write that down, guys.
Five love languages.
Yes.
5 love languages.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank
And there
you.
are online assessments for that. You don't, if you don't want to spend the time reading the book, there's some questionnaires that just kind of ask you about yourself and your preferences and what makes you feel good, and you can begin to get a sense of your love language.
Questionnaires.
Yeah.
Questionnaires.
Right.
That's good. So, speaking on, I know we were speaking about trust a little bit, and that was one of the needs in a relationship. Do you think that's actually repairable after one cheats?
I think that,
It depends.
yeah, I think that it is repairable, but it takes a lot. It takes for the person who is cheated on to be able to say, okay, I accept this and I'm going to move forward. Like, it takes forgiveness, because if you're going to stick in a relationship where someone's cheated on you, but then you want to punish them, throughout the rest of the relationship for cheating on you, because when you get cheated on, or when anyone hurts
That
you,
betrayal.
the betrayal hurts, and a
You got
lot
the
of
whole
times,
Lemonade album. when you get cheated on, right? The whole Lemonade album. Like, I'm just going through it.
I ain't sorry. But you want to sometimes when you're hurt like that, you want to get them back. You want them to hurt like you're hurting. You want them to understand the pain that they put you through. And a lot of people go about that in different ways. But unless you can let that go and move forward, and that's the hardest thing. You have to be able to forgive, and you have to be able to let that go, which is the hardest hurdle.
Right. And what do you think, Jamila?
So, I think that there are certain things that make it easier to forgive. I think oftentimes people who have children, they have an immense ability to go through acts of forgiveness because they recognize that their relationship is more than just the two individuals, but they're living in the service of family, and they do things for the sake of the children. I don't always recommend that.
Because it could be a toxic environment.
It could be extremely toxic, and then the children end up becoming casualties of war, So it doesn't always mean it's a positive thing, but I think there's a greater ability for people to do that when there's something more at stake. I also think that individuals who are very much faith-based and understand that they put their faith in a higher power, they trust in the ability for individuals to change because they know themselves that there's been let's say God, for example, has been forgiving of them and their transgressions. So how can they stand and be completely judgmental of someone else? So they extend grace to their partner because they can see from a spiritual perspective that grace has been extended to them. But I think there is a difference between just remaining in a relationship and philosophically saying, I forgive you, and then having a healthy recovery and repair, which really requires an ability to refrain from being manipulative and controlling and vindictive, and also to not pry Sometimes when you have that first break of infidelity, there's all of these tactics.
Right. Now I want your clothes to everything.
Right.
Everything. Yes,
You want their email account.
Right.
And so when it's when you have a relationship that's founded on a lack of trust and that doesn't get restored, forgiveness is very difficult and it's not healthy.
Right. And that actually brings me to one of my quotes. I remember the last event we had a great tea party, and I was saying to the women there that when we were speaking about relationships, is relationships are the hospitals of the soul. This is where everything comes up in order to be healed. And the question now is your relationship strong enough to heal each other?
Right.
So that is deep.
Yes.
That got me through some things. Because I'm like, look, we need you to get stitches or something? What you need? Because you get on my nerves and I cannot deal.
Yes.
Okay, but now, just because we're on the subject, why do you guys think women cheat?
I think we have, and I'm not speaking for all women,
Right.
but I certainly think that women are wired differently. I think that for many women, there are psychological reasons that are the foundation of cheating, more so than maybe just the physical and the sexual. That tends to be more often the case for men. The idea of being honored, being appreciated,
Yes, I think
having
that's what I was gonna
someone
say.
spend time with you,
Yeah.
tend to you, see the queen in you.
Right.
Those are very important.
Right.
And I think oftentimes when men are not careful and they're not tending to those areas inside of the relationship, women can cheat even if it's not a sexual relationship.
Right.
Straight
And
emotional.
sometimes,
Yes,
yeah,
they
those
just
are
want that
the
attention.
harder relationships to break, when it's
Right.
really based off of emotion and just the psychological or spiritual connection.
Right. That's
And
what
men?
well,
Is it just a turn up?
yeah.
I feel like
I think a lot of men might not be ready to be in a committed relationship, and they jump in. A lot of men can be convinced into being in relationships before they're ready.
Indeed.
And they may not be mature enough or ready for a monogamous relationship, and they're not going to be honest about that, and it comes out in different ways. In more long-term committed relationships, I think sometimes it's just a lack of communication, and you might feel like you're not connected with your partner anymore. I think that's more when you're in a long-term committed relationship where you don't feel connected with your partner anymore. And a lot of men do this same thing for attention. Another woman shows them that attention, strokes their ego.
that was girls. Wait for you
Yes.
to say that.
Yes.
That's really integral.
Yes.
In a relationship with a guy, they
Right.
like to feel appreciated in that way.
Right.
They like to feel like men. Like they like to feel
Yes.
appreciated as well.
Right.
And sometimes women we miss the mark, and they find that elsewhere. As soon as someone gives them a compliment, as soon as someone shows them that type of attention, because women, guess what? We're used to getting complimented.
Right.
But when a man's get complimented, he's like, oh,
Yes.
It feels
okay,
very
shorty,
good.
yeah.
Right.
And then now that attention goes elsewhere.
Right.
So
I did a video on compliments not too long ago because complimenting men, because it's so important, and women forget sometimes to give their men those compliments, to tell them they look good, to tell them they feel safe and protected around them, to make them feel like they're doing their man job. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's something that women forget about sometimes.
no, I think that's a great point. They love to feel appreciated.
Yes.
So last question, just to kind of tie everything up. How do you feel the relationship with your parent helps you for your future relationships? For example, you have mama's boys, and then you have guys that hate their moms. Yeah. Right?
Those are dangerous.
Those are dangerous.
Never date a guy who hates his mom.
Because the way that relationship with his mother is usually the way that relationship is with their spouse.
Right.
Same with girls and their dads.
Right.
You end up marrying someone that's like your father,
Right.
or the opposite
Right.
of your father.
Yeah.
Right? For me, my father spoiled me rotten.
Me too.
Right?
Me too.
As a result, I'm thinking I'm a princess.
Yes.
Expectation.
Right.
Expectations.
Right.
You not treat me like a queen, you need to go.
Right,
Because
right.
I was a princess, I've been a princess.
Right.
So if I'm queen status and you're not meeting me there, I'm sorry, you need to exit.
Yes.
In addition to that, material things wasn't anything to me because I already had all of that. And now I could buy my own things. So again, my language of love was time, was affection, was different things.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily me needing something from you that was materialistic.
Right.
So what do you guys think about straight relationships with parents? Like me, with my son, I know that's such a fragile relationship, and I want him to be the best husband and father he can be in the future. So we're best friends.
Right.
Like I taught him basketball. We're on the court. We're just doing things. I never miss a game. I don't care how many businesses I own. I'm always there because I want him to be there for his wife and to be there for his kids. Right. So just to tie this together, what do you guys think about that?
I think it's, it's crucial, the relationship that you have with your parents, because they're your model, for what a woman is, what a man is, you know what I mean? And if that relationship is broken in some sort of way, then you might be looking for love that you didn't get from them, from someone else, or you might be looking for someone else to validate who you are. You might be looking for someone else to tell you you're special if you didn't get that from them. And that can be a really rocky road to go down when you're looking for something outside of yourself to fulfill you. And if your parents didn't instill you with that self-esteem and that self-love, because I think that's really where it starts. If your parents don't instill that in you, you take that out in the world.
Right. When girls have daddy issues, they looking for daddy
everywhere.
Everywhere, and it gets a little tough. And the same with guys that I've seen have mommy issues. Am I your spouse or am I your mom?
Right.
So now our relationship is a little off.
And I think that in the Black community, that's a huge thing, because a lot of sons end up being the man of the house at a very young age, or they're babied. You know what I mean? It's just the dynamics can go a lot of different ways, but I think that it's so crucial to have that healthy relationship with your parents. And if you didn't have that healthy relationship, be responsible enough to realize what you're lacking and try to fulfill that in yourself.
Absolutely. Ladies, thank you so much for coming. We had a great conversation on relationships. We're going to
you.
try to continue this November 11th, St. Peter's University. You guys better be at our huge annual empowerment summit. It's going to be great. 300 plus people, okay? But this is your host, Alexandra Bernard Simmons, and this was Think Like a Boss TV. Thanks for watching.